The gunshot echoed through the dusty streets of Willow Creek, Montana, in 1878. But it wasn't the sound that stopped Vivian Blackburn in her tracks. It was the coldness in her father's voice as he disowned her in front of the entire town. "No daughter of mine consorts with Indians and brings shame to our good name," he spat, tossing her single valise into the dirt. At 22, Vivian found herself alone, the whispers of townsfolk swirling around her like the prairie dust. That Blackburn girl always been trouble. Her poor father, such disgrace she's brought. Unworthy of the family name, that one. Vivian clutched her threadbare shawl tighter, the autumn chill nothing compared to the cold reception she received. Her crime: teaching reading and writing to Blackfoot children on the reservation while working as the territory's only female physician's assistant. Healing hands, her grandmother had called them. Cursed hands, the town now said. The stagecoach wasn't due for another 3 days, and no establishment would offer her lodging. She had nowhere to go, nothing but a medical bag and a change of clothes to her name. Her father's banking fortune might as well have been on the moon. "Miss, you look like you could use a hot meal." She turned to find a tall figure silhouetted against the setting sun. Vaughn Hendricks stood easily over 6 feet, his shoulders broad beneath a well-worn duster. Unlike the polished men of Willow Creek society, he carried himself with quiet confidence that required no audience. The town knew him as the man who'd bought the failing Harrison Ranch 3 years prior and transformed it into one of the most prosperous cattle operations in the territory. "I'm quite all right, Mr. Hendricks," she replied, though her stomach betrayed her with an audible growl. A hint of a smile touched the corner of his mouth. "Your stomach disagrees, Miss Blackburn." Vivian's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. "I don't accept charity, sir." "Good, because I'm not offering any. I'm offering a job." His hazel eyes studied her with careful consideration. "My sister's expecting her first child. Could use someone with medical knowledge at the ranch until she delivers." Vivian hesitated. The Hendricks place was 15 miles outside town, far enough to escape the gossip, close enough to find other opportunities once his sister delivered. "I'd pay fair wages, provide room and board," he added. "Why would you help me? You know what they're saying." Vaughn's jaw tightened as he looked toward the saloon where several townsmen had gathered to watch their exchange. "Because I know what it's like when this town decides who's worthy and who isn't." He tipped his hat. "Offer stands if you're interested. I'll be at Peterson's Mercantile for another hour." 58 minutes later, Vivian found herself climbing into Vaughn's wagon, her meager possessions stored beneath the seat. As they rolled past the saloon, she heard one of the men call out, "Taking in strays now, Hendricks. That one ain't worth the trouble." Vaughn didn't slow the wagon but responded loud enough for all to hear. "She's worth more than all of you put together." His voice carried no anger, only a matter-of-fact certainty that silenced the jeers. They rode in comfortable silence as the town disappeared behind them. The Montana landscape sprawled before them, golden prairie grasses waving in the breeze beneath an endless blue sky. Vivian felt something loosen in her chest with each mile they traveled. "Thank you," she said finally. "For what?" "For what you said back there." Vaughn kept his eyes on the horizon. "Just stated a fact, Miss Blackburn." The Hendricks Ranch appeared as the sun dipped low, a 2-story white farmhouse, several outbuildings, and a large barn. The house stood like a beacon against the darkening sky, windows glowing with warm lamplight. A pregnant woman in her early 30s appeared on the porch, her hand resting protectively over her swollen belly. "You must be Miss Blackburn," she called, smiling broadly. "I'm Catherine Morley, Vaughn's sister. You're a sight for sore eyes." Vivian was welcomed with a warmth she hadn't expected. "Catherine," 7 months pregnant and recently widowed, had come to live with her brother after losing her husband to typhoid back east. She showed Vivian to a small but comfortable bedroom with its own washstand. "Vaughn mentioned you have medical training," Catherine said as they sat down to a simple supper of beef stew and fresh bread. "I was apprenticed to Dr. Howard for 3 years," Vivian explained. "I assisted with everything from setting bones to delivering babies." "Then you're truly heaven sent," Catherine sighed. "The nearest doctor is in Helena, and with winter coming." "I'll stay until after your confinement," Vivian promised. That night, lying beneath clean quilts in a strange bed, Vivian allowed herself to cry for the first time since her father's public rejection. She wept for her lost place in society, for the patients she'd come to care for on the reservation, and for her uncertain future. Eventually, exhaustion claimed her. Morning arrived with the scent of coffee and bacon. Vivian dressed quickly in her one good dress and made her way to the kitchen. She found not Catherine but Vaughn at the stove, expertly flipping flapjacks. "Good morning," he said without turning. "Catherine's still asleep. Baby kept her up most of the night." "I should check on her," Vivian said, reaching for her medical bag. She said it was normal, just the little one practicing kicks. He slid a plate in front of her. "Eat first, doctor's orders." Vivian raised an eyebrow. "Are you a doctor now, Mr. Hendricks?" "Just a rancher who knows nobody works well on an empty stomach." His smile transformed his usually serious face, creating crinkles around his eyes that suggested he'd once smiled more often. Over breakfast, Vaughn explained the ranch routine and introduced her to the small staff. Miguel, the foreman, Joshua and Isaac, 2 young cowboys, and Mrs. Peterson, who came from town 3 times weekly to help with laundry and heavier housework. "I've told them all you're here as Catherine's midwife and companion," he said. "Your business in town is your own." "Thank you for your discretion," Vivian replied quietly. As days turned into weeks, Vivian settled into life at the ranch. She tended to Catherine, whose pregnancy progressed well despite occasional swelling in her ankles. She also found herself treating the ranch hands for minor injuries, a cut here, a bruise there, and even assisted when one of the prized mares foaled early. October brought chilly mornings and golden afternoons. Vivian discovered Vaughn was not the rough cowboy she'd initially imagined. In the evenings, she often found him reading Shakespeare by lamplight or writing letters to merchants back east regarding his cattle business. He spoke 3 languages: English, Spanish, and surprisingly, some Blackfoot phrases which he had learned to better negotiate cattle sales with neighboring tribes. "How did you learn Blackfoot?" she asked one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. Vaughn was silent for so long she thought he might not answer. "When I first came here, my land bordered the reservation. Instead of fighting over grazing rights like most ranchers, I decided to learn enough to negotiate fairly." He looked at her curiously. "That's why you got run out of town, isn't it? For helping at the reservation," Vivian nodded. "Father said I was consorting with savages. I was just teaching children to read and tending to the sick when Dr. Howard couldn't make the journey." "This territory needs more people like you, not fewer," Vaughn said softly. As November arrived with its first dusting of snow, Vivian realized she was falling in love with the quiet rancher. It wasn't just his kindness, or the respect with which he treated everyone from his sister to his youngest ranch hand. It was the way she caught him watching her when he thought she wasn't looking, a gaze filled with admiration rather than judgment. One crisp afternoon, while gathering eggs in the henhouse, Vivian heard riders approaching. Stepping outside, she saw 3 men she recognized from town, including her father's business partner, Gerald Thompson. "Well, if it isn't the Blackburn disgrace," Thompson called, his voice carrying across the yard. Your father's quite ill, girl. Thought you should know, though he hasn't asked for you. Vivian felt her heart clench. Despite everything, she still loved her father. How ill? Pneumonia. Doctor says he might not last the week. Before she could respond, Vaughn appeared from the barn, his stance protective as he positioned himself slightly in front of her. Thompson, this is private property. Just delivering a message, Hendricks, Thompson sneered. Though why you'd sully your reputation harboring damaged goods is beyond me. Vaughn's voice remained calm, but his eyes hardened. Miss Blackburn is my guest and under my protection. I suggest you remember that. Protection, Thompson laughed. Or something else. The whole town's talking about what services she might be providing to earn her keep out here. Vivian gasped at the implication, and Vaughn's hand moved to the revolver at his hip. You've delivered your message. Now get off my land before I forget my manners. The three men rode away, but their visit left a shadow. That evening, Vivian packed her small bag. Where do you think you're going? Vaughn asked from her doorway. To town. My father is dying. I'll take you in the morning. It's too dangerous at night. You don't need to involve yourself further. I've brought enough scandal to your doorstep. Vaughn crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just short of touching her. Is that what you think? That I care about town gossip? You should, she whispered. Your business, your reputation, my reputation is for being fair and keeping my word. Nothing else matters. His voice softened. Vivian, look at me. It was the first time he'd used her given name. She raised her eyes to his. From the moment I saw you standing alone in that street, I knew you were extraordinary. Not because you needed rescuing, but because even with the whole town against you, you stood tall. He took her hand gently. I'm not concerned with what Willow Creek thinks of me or you. I'm concerned with what you think of me. I think you're the finest man I've ever known, she admitted. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Then trust me to take you to your father in the morning. Whatever happens, you won't face it alone. The next day dawned cold and clear. Vaughn drove Vivian into town in his best buggy rather than the wagon, a silent statement to the townsfolk about her status. As they passed familiar streets, Vivian felt the weight of stares and whispers. At her father's grand house on Cherry Street, the housekeeper initially refused to admit her, but Vaughn's firm insistence and the flash of coins pressed into the woman's hand gained them entry. Vivian found her father diminished in his massive 4-poster bed, his once robust frame withered beneath the covers. His eyes, however, still held the same steely determination she remembered. So you've come, he rasped, his voice barely audible. Couldn't wait for me to die, could you? Father, please, Vivian approached the bed. Let me help. I have medicines, knowledge. I don't want help from someone who betrayed her upbringing. His gaze shifted to Vaughn. And now living in sin with a rancher. How much lower can you fall? Vaughn stepped forward. Mr. Blackburn, your daughter has been employed as your sister-in-law's midwife and companion. Her reputation at my ranch is spotless. As if the word of a cowboy means anything, Edward Blackburn wheezed. A man who consorts with Indians and half-breeds. Vivian felt her old fear of her father battling with newfound strength. Father, I came because despite everything, I love you, but I won't apologize for helping people in need or for staying with honorable people when you cast me out. Honorable? Her father laughed, triggering a coughing fit. There's nothing honorable about any of this. You're unworthy of the Blackburn name. Vaughn's voice cut through the tension. She's worth more than the Blackburn name, sir. She's worth more than all the so-called respectable people in this town put together. He placed a protective hand on the small of Vivian's back. Your daughter has more courage, compassion, and integrity than anyone I've ever met. If you can't see that, then you're the one who's unworthy of her. Edward Blackburn stared at Vaughn in shock, unused to being addressed so directly. Vivian touched her father's hand. "I didn't come for forgiveness or inheritance, Father. I came because no one should die without family nearby." She placed a small bottle on his nightstand. "This will ease your breathing. 3 drops in water every 4 hours." As they turned to leave, her father called weakly, "Vivian." She paused at the door. "You always were stubborn," he muttered, "like your mother." It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to reconciliation she could expect. Outside in the crisp air, Vivian found herself trembling. Vaughn wrapped his coat around her shoulders without a word and helped her into the buggy. As they passed the general store, the whispers followed them. Vivian heard fragments disgrace and unworthy among them. But then Vaughn did something unexpected. He stopped the buggy directly in front of the group of gossiping women. "Ladies," he said, tipping his hat with exaggerated politeness, "I believe congratulations are in order. Miss Blackburn has just agreed to become my wife." Vivian's head whipped toward him in shock. "That is," he added with a wink to her, "if she'll have me." Before she could respond, he clicked to the horses and they continued down the street, leaving the women open-mouthed behind them. Vaughn Hendricks. Vivian finally found her voice once they'd cleared the town limits. "What on earth was that?" "That," he said, looking straight ahead with a hint of a smile, "was me staking my claim before I actually asked the question. Insurance, you might say." "Insurance against what?" "Against you saying no." He pulled the buggy to a stop beneath a large cottonwood tree. Turning to face her fully, his expression grew serious. "I planned to do this properly, had a speech prepared and everything." "Vaughn, no, let me finish. I've been alone a long time, Vivian. Built my ranch, made my fortune, thought that was enough. Then you arrived, standing tall despite everything, and suddenly my life before you seemed empty." He took her hands in his. "I love you, not because you needed saving that day in town, but because every day since, you've saved pieces of me I didn't know were lost." Tears filled Vivian's eyes. "They'll never accept me except us." "I don't give a damn what they accept." His voice was fierce with conviction. "We'll build our life outside their narrow minds. The ranch is just the beginning. I've been buying more land, planning for the future. Our future, if you want it." "Are you actually asking me something, Mr. Hendricks?" she teased gently. He laughed, then slid from the buggy to one knee in the dusty road. "Vivian Blackburn, will you marry me and make me the happiest man in Montana territory?" "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." He pulled her down into his arms, his kiss confirming all the unspoken promises between them. They were married 2 weeks later in a small ceremony at the ranch, with Catherine serving as witness despite her advanced pregnancy. Miguel and the Cowboys created a wedding arch of twisted branches and late-blooming wildflowers. Vivian wore a simple blue dress Catherine had helped alter, with wildflowers in her hair. Her father died 3 days after the wedding without reconciliation, leaving his entire fortune to the church. Vivian mourned not his passing but the relationship they never had. Winter settled over the ranch with blankets of snow and long, cozy evenings by the fire. Catherine's son arrived in early December, a healthy boy they named Thomas, after her late husband. Vivian's skilled hands ensured both mother and child thrived. As spring approached, bringing with it new calves and fresh possibilities, Vaughn and Vivian began expanding their vision for the ranch. They built a small clinic in one of the outbuildings, where Vivian could treat neighboring ranchers and reservation families alike. Vaughn expanded trade with the Blackfoot, establishing fair prices and mutual respect where others had brought only conflict. One evening in April, as they sat on their porch watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold, Vivian rested her head on her husband's shoulder. "I received a letter from Helena today," she said. The Territorial Medical Board has agreed to review my application for a license. That's wonderful news, Vaughn replied, kissing the top of her head. Dr. Vivian Hendricks has a fine ring to it. It does, she agreed, then guided his hand to her slightly rounded belly. And just in time to deliver our own little one this fall. Vaughn's eyes widened in joyful surprise before he gathered her in his arms, his kiss conveying everything words couldn't. Later that week, they needed supplies from town. It was Vivian's first visit to Willow Creek since their wedding. As they rode down the main street, she felt the familiar stares, but something had changed. Perhaps it was the wedding band on her finger, or the visible evidence of her pregnancy, or simply the months that had passed, but the whispers seemed to hold less power over her now. At the general store, Mrs. Peterson greeted them warmly, having become a friend during her visits to the ranch. Other townsfolk nodded politely if not enthusiastically. As Vivian selected fabric for baby clothes, she overheard two women talking quietly. That Blackburn girl certainly landed on her feet. Hendricks is the richest rancher in the county now. Must have been her plan all along, the other replied. Though what he sees in her, I'll never understand. Always was an odd, unworthy sort of girl. Vivian tensed, but before she could respond, another voice joined the conversation. Catherine's friend, Martha, from the millinery shop. Unworthy. Is that what you call a woman who saved my sister's life during childbirth when no doctor would come? Is that what you call someone who treats Blackfoot children and white children with the same care? Perhaps we should reconsider what makes a person worthy in this town. Vivian turned, surprised to find an unexpected ally. Martha gave her a small smile and a nod before continuing her shopping. Outside, Vaughn was loading their purchases when Thompson approached, his manner less antagonistic than before. Hendricks. Mrs. Hendricks, he acknowledged stiffly. I understand congratulations are in order regarding your condition. Thank you, Mr. Thompson, Vivian replied evenly. The bank is considering extending credit for several new businesses, he continued, including a proper medical clinic. The town council thought perhaps you might have insights given your experiences. It wasn't an apology, but it was an olive branch one extended out of necessity rather than goodwill, but an opening nonetheless. I would be happy to provide any assistance the council requires, Vivian said, maintaining her dignity. As they drove home, Vaughn took her hand. Progress comes slowly to places like Willow Creek. Yes, but it comes, she replied, and in the meantime we build something better. That night, as they lay together in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, Vivian reflected on the journey that had brought her here from disowned daughter to respected rancher's wife, from assistant to soon-to-be doctor, from outcast to creator of her own community. What are you thinking about so seriously? Vaughn asked, stroking her hair. About worth, she said, and how sometimes we have to lose everything to discover what's truly valuable. And what did you discover? She rolled toward him, resting her palm against his chest to feel his steady heartbeat. That worth isn't bestowed by others. It's lived every day in the choices we make and the love we give. Wise words, Mrs. Hendricks, he murmured against her lips. I told them you were worth more than all of them combined. And I'm proving you right, one day at a time, she whispered back. Outside their window, the Montana sky spread endlessly above their land, stars scattered like possibilities across the darkness. Beneath that same sky, the whispers of Willow Creek grew ever fainter, replaced by the stronger voices of their growing family and the community they were building, one where worth was measured not by name or conformity, but by character and compassion. And in that truth, Vivian and Vaughn Hendricks found their greatest fortune.